Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynic Alex. And today I want to talk about recent character design and skill design choices that Netmarble has made and that the management and developers have done and put forward for new characters, and especially for the high tier native tier 2 characters that I don't like and that a lot of people in the community appear to be frustrated with. And there's one particular aspect of these character designs and skill designs that people don't seem to appreciate at all, and it's the fact that there's massive skill canceling. To illustrate this point, I basically want to ask you the question. I'm about to do Apocalypse's skill rotation. I want you to tell me if you understand what's going on the screen right now. Do you actually see where your character is? Do you see where the Frost Beast is? Do you see where all of the robots are? I'm going to do it again here in a second so you guys can get a second glimpse at it. But basically the screen, when you play as Apocalypse and a few other characters, the screen gets filled up with a bunch of different effects because you're skill canceling 4 skills at the same time, and it basically becomes one giant clusterfuck, excuse my language, of different effects and different kind of, you know, jumps and lightnings and balls and summons and all this crazy mashup of graphics that really doesn't help anyone. It doesn't look very nice. It kind of robs the game of its artistic integrity because you really can't see what's going on, and it makes it very difficult to play because frankly you can't really see and take advantage of things that you can control, like character positioning, where the enemies are, how many enemies are left if you need to do another skill to follow it up to clear out the last wave of the mobs, where the Frost Beast is, and where your character is in relation to all of this. It just becomes a giant mess of bodies, and it's become very popular for Netmarble to do this kind of skill based design for new and for especially competitive characters. So Apocalypse is definitely not alone in this regard. We have characters like Jean Grey, Quicksilver, Ant-Man, Nova, characters like Cable. Cable is probably the biggest accuser of this because he has essentially 3 skills that you can cancel automatically and gain all of their effects from the skill despite having canceled it, and it honestly goes against a lot of the game design choices that Netmarble had made in the past. Netmarble hadn't really done a lot of skill canceling. There were characters that had a couple of skills that you could skill cancel, but it was never the entire kit of the character, which kind of pushes things to another level. And especially with how intense this game has gotten graphically, it really hurts a lot of the players on lower end phones and players who cannot play on their computer or play on a high-end device like an iPad or a new iPhone, because they just can't keep up with all of these graphics flying at them on the screen. And if they turn the graphic settings down to very low, for example, as I know a lot of people will suggest, it really robs the game of a lot of its quality and high performance and shine and the kind of polish that the game has. And it also gets rid of a lot of the particles that tell you when a skill has finished, that give you a lot of vital information. You know, ARPGs are not necessarily, or not usually, about skill canceling and just spamming the screen with a whole bunch of different effects. There are definitely certain skills that do that, but a big part of the ARPG experience is also skill comboing, putting certain skills together, putting certain characters with certain skills together to enhance their effects and get more desired effects that you want, like putting a character that debuffs together with a character that deals a lot of damage that's being debuffed, like elemental damage or physical damage or magic damage, or putting a character that stuns with a character that deals a lot of good damage close range, for example. But in addition to that, there's basically 2 problems with the skill canceling meta of characters like I said, Quicksilver, Apocalypse, Cable, Jean Grey, and others, and you know, going back as far as Doctor Strange. For the first reason, or on the first hand, it makes it very difficult to play the character because you have to strictly adhere, if you want to do well in certain game modes, you strictly adhere to one skill rotation, and you basically don't know what to do, or you don't do anything otherwise. You just go through the canceling skills as fast as you can, and it really doesn't require a lot of skill. It just requires a lot of precision. You just have to be precise in pressing the buttons in the right order and at the right time. So it doesn't really gauge your understanding of the character. As long as you're good at pressing buttons quickly and in the right order, you can do well with the character if it's a skill canceling type of character. The second problem is that it obviously completely messes up the screen and covers the screen in effects, so it's really difficult to see what's going on, to read what you're doing, what the enemy's doing, and that coupled with the whole spike in damage that we've talked about before from some of these crazy new characters has made it so that the screen just gets filled up with particles, and then you look and the smoke is gone, the smoke settles, and your character is dead. In addition, on top of punishing people who have lower end devices, it also doesn't have a very good gauge for the player's ability to play with the character. So for example, Ant-Man doesn't have many skill canceling abilities. What you need to do with Ant-Man is you need to very carefully monitor his elusive hero trait, because when the cooldown starts, you basically have to defend and dodge and kite for 10 seconds, and then you'll have 20 seconds of freedom when you can just go crazy on the enemy. So you have to balance multiple things. You're comboing your skills, but you're also watching the cooldown on some of your defensive skills like speeding bullet with the iframe and flying rush with the iframe, in addition to watching the clock and the enemy's health in order to make sure that you're doing enough damage and you're being aggressive enough to kill them before the time runs out. That's where actual skillful play comes into account, and you can actually see good players from bad players who can actually read the landscape of the match and figure out what they need to do and take steps to do them and to win. But with skill canceling, you don't need to do any of that. You don't really need to pay attention to anything. You just need to press the skills in the right order at the right speed, okay, almost in a robotic way, and it definitely becomes robotic and repetitive after playing with some of these characters. I can attest to the fact that I don't really need to think that much when I'm playing as Cable, because I've repeated his skill rotation: 4 cancel, 3 cancel, 2 cancel, 5, 1. 4 cancel, 3 cancel, 2 cancel, 5, 1. I've repeated that skill rotation so many times, it's ingrained in my brain, but it doesn't take a lot of skill. Now, some people might complain that, well, I get a higher score with Cable, or they don't do as well. Well, that honestly boils down to a couple of other things that are not necessarily under your control, things that usually revolve around items that Netmarble has made a premium and has put a premium value on, and the game mode that they were designed for. I think a lot of these recent characters are just being designed for Alliance Battle and Alliance Battle Extreme, because you're doing continuous damage to the Frost Beast, and that's how you get the highest score. So of course, characters like Ant-Man and characters like Nova are going to get a higher score because they can spam their skills and skill cancel and get higher damage numbers on these enemies. You know, Odin takes a lot more skill to play than than Nova. You know why? Because you actually have to dodge meteors with Odin. You have to time your skills properly, and you have to manage the cooldown of your 3rd skill because of the blind on the Frost Beast, and the 5th skill, because both of these are your only forms of protection, in addition to the iframe on the 4th skill. But there's actual skill involved. So when you saw someone who had a score like 200,000 versus 250,000, you can bet that the person with 250,000 was a much better dodger of meteors, and they could manage their skill cooldowns much better. And that is the purest form of play in this game, is managing skill cooldowns and manually dodging with the joystick. On the other hand, if you see players that can get 800 versus 900,000 with Nova, it has very little to do with the person's skill as a player. It mostly has to do with whether or not they can skill cancel correctly, whether they have the robotic reflexes that they need, and then it comes down to their items. Do they have fully awakened ISO 8? Do they have a maxed out CTP of energy or destruction? And these kinds of things just aren't very fun. They're not reflective of the character or the player's skill with the character. They're just reflective of items and robotic repetition of different button presses. And it just goes to show you how much of an emphasis is being placed on character design in relation to Alliance Battle. Whether it's the developers who want to do this, or whether it's the management of Netmarble that wants the developers to do this, to push the veterans, to push the competitive players, and to push the whales to spend money on CTPs and spend money on mega rank up tickets and ultimates chests, I don't know. I don't have that answer. I'm just speculating. But I am here to say that I don't like it. Even with Thanos, they changed around his kit and they made him stronger, but they gave him more skill canceling with his 4th skill, and he doesn't need that. He just needs strong skills that you can cast that do a good effect when they're cast. I think this game needs to move away from the skill canceling and the obsession with having 5 skills going off simultaneously, and they need to go back to the roots of this game, which are more akin to a combo game, like in a fighting game. There's a lot of great characters like Captain America who don't skill cancel, but they skill combo. They do their skills in a particular order to get a particular effect and to get desired buffs activated at a specific time in order to defend themselves or to do more damage, and it results in a feeling of success and a feeling of your influence on the game being the reason why you won. And that's really satisfying for the players. Sif is another great example. You use her her third skill to get that immunity, and then you use other skills, and then you use her fourth skill, which has an iframe, to stall until you can use the third skill again. There are plenty of characters in this game, usually weaker ones, who rely on skill comboing. Inferno's another great example, but they're much more fun to play. Unfortunately, basically the only game mode that you can play them in and have reasonable success and feel good about yourself is World Boss or Shadowland. And that's all. And there's no way to really compete with other people in those game modes. It's all just self-competition. So I would really encourage the management or the developers, whoever's responsible at Netmarble, please end this obsession, this fascination, this love affair with skill canceling characters. Okay, nobody really enjoys playing these characters because it feels overpowered, but it doesn't really feel fun. You just spam all your skills and then watch the mayhem ensue. Bring back the characters that take skill to play, where you have to watch your rotations and you have to time your skills and you have to look at your cooldown and you have to see all of these things and manage them all in your head. Those are the characters that are fun to play. The Moon Knights, the Iron Fists, the Rogues, and the Magnetos and the Cyclopses. Even Magneto, he has one skill that you can cancel and get its effect, his fifth skill, but that is kind of within his power level. It doesn't make him overpowered to do that. You know, Proxima deals a lot of damage, but if you cancel her fifth skill, nothing happens. I think if you cancel skills, very little should happen. You should not get the full effect of the skill. Maybe the amount of damage should be decreased by 50%. I don't know. But I do think that something needs to be done and someone should speak up about it, because I'm tired of, and I'm bored, frankly, of characters like Cable, Apocalypse, Jean Grey, Quicksilver, Ant-Man, Nova, and to an extent Doctor Strange, who just skill cancel their way to victory. Let's take a step back. Let's slow it down a bit. We can enjoy the beautiful graphics and the gameplay that this game has to offer if we can do one or two skills at a time. Why don't we change Extreme Alliance Battle so that it's a combo based platform where the number of times that you cast the same skill doesn't necessarily affect your score, but the amount of damage that you can do while rotating through your skills in a fluid manner would impact your score more, as it would with a fighting game training arena, where you're rewarded with a higher combo meter by doing different skills and doing different orders of skills to show off your proficiency with the character, rather than just spamming skills over and over in a haphazard way. That is my take on something that I've recently rediscovered and looked a little bit more deeply on and at. Thank you for one of my Twitch bros in the chat who kind of pointed this out to me during a live stream a few days ago. I wanted to expand on what you said, and I think you made a really great point about this kind of skill spamming silliness that we have with characters like Apocalypse. I hope you guys enjoyed the content and you enjoyed this discussion, and leave me your thoughts below in the comments. I am curious and eager to read them. Subscribe if you enjoyed the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.